Well, this is quite a subtle subject, spiritual concentration. And so I'd like to, first of all, make a little bit of contrast between regular concentration, which is physical, and spiritual concentration. So when you're concentrating on something physical, it could be that you're writing something and you're concentrating on what you're writing. It could be that you're trying to locate an area in a particular complicated picture and you're concentrating on trying to find that. Sometimes we use the power of concentration to remember where we left something. We may find that something is missing, and so you have to, in your mind, go back and remember the last time you had that thing, where you were. And then I think physically you have to go back and retrace your footsteps, and then finally you may find it. Sometimes in that kind of effort of concentration, you are not able to find it, and so you do something else, and all of a sudden you get a flash in which you remember it, and it might be because there's some kind of an association. I had an interesting example of that recently. I was in Madhuban, and I was missing something, and I was very sure of where I last had it. And then I asked someone, "Oh, can you help me find this thing?" Because this person had helped me find something before. And interestingly, that person said, "No, no, I have no idea," but looked up and pointed his head towards the place where the item was without seeing it because it was behind a wall. But as soon as he pointed his head in that direction, it clicked. Oh, yes, I left it over there. And there it was, sure enough. So what this tells you is there are many things going on in our consciousness, in our memory, in our subconscious, in our mind, of which we're not always completely aware about that, how the mind functions. So in physical matters, we rely upon association and different types of reminders, or we use certain methods to concentrate for the purpose of getting an idea. You may sometimes be given a task and you have to concentrate on that task, and it might be a creative task. And concentration involves turning your attention away from anything that has nothing to do with what you're working on, so that you're just concentrating on that one thing. So concentration means that you're positioning your attention somewhere specific, and although there may be many distractions and other things that might try to pull your attention away, the instrument that you're using for focusing your attention on the desired area is your will. So now the will is a very interesting thing, because sometimes people complain that you want to do something, but somehow you don't have the power to go through with it. And this we call as willpower. There's different expressions about this that we use to give ourselves a sort of excuse, we're willing, but we can't do it. And why can't we do it is because our power of intention, our willpower is weak. Sometimes people use this idea of a weak will for when a person wants to give something up. And it does happen in many people's lives. They decide, okay, I will give up such and such an activity, which is clearly not good for me, but something that I engage in quite a lot. And you say, I would if I could, but I can't. So when we say I cannot do something, the meaning of this sentence is that you do not have the ability, but in a spiritual endeavor, we would challenge that and say, yes, of course you have the ability, but you don't have the power. And so we really need to start thinking about what this internal power or willpower or power of intention is all about and what gets in the way of it, preventing us from doing it. One of the ways that it gets or our intention gets obstructed is we will say to ourselves, okay, I should do this. It's good for me. I made a commitment to do it, so therefore I will do it from this time to this time. As in meditation, for example, we say, okay, I will meditate at particular times. And as you all know, we in the practice of Raj Yoga have particular times when we are encouraged to meditate. So, for example, the first meditation is at 4 o'clock in the morning. And many people say, oh, that's way too early. I don't think I can do that because I'm tired, because I have a busy schedule, because I can't keep awake, because I can't get up, because, and we use this word cannot, cannot, cannot. And so we need to look at this a little bit more carefully and say, okay, it's not that I cannot, I can, but what is stopping me? So, what is stopping a person from doing certain things? One of the ways to figure it out is to work backwards. So you say, okay, one of my excuses is I need more sleep. Well, it may not be an excuse, it may be a reality. You need more sleep. So decide for yourself how much sleep you need. So some people say, well, it's well known that we should have 8 hours sleep. Okay, so if you want to go with 8 hours sleep, then you have to work backwards. And so 4 o'clock in the morning minus 4 is midnight, and midnight minus 4 is like 8 o'clock. So if you want to be fresh at 4 o'clock in the morning, then you would say, okay, if I want 8 hours sleep, then I have to go to sleep at 8 o'clock in the evening. And then you will say, but I'm not in the habit of going to bed that early. Okay, so what time are you in the habit of going to bed? You'll say, well, 11 o'clock. All right, 11 o'clock at night, you want to go to sleep. So 11 plus 5 is 4 o'clock in the morning. That means you have 5 hours sleep. So you decide, can you manage 5 hours sleep? Some may be able to do it just fine. Some may say, no, I want to go to bed at 11 o'clock. I want to wake up by 4 o'clock in the morning, and I want to have 8 hours sleep. So then you have to find 3 other hours in the day where you catch up your sleep. And in this way, you'll give yourself 8 hours sleep, maybe not in one go, but that's not a problem. So it's really a matter of intention to create for yourself a discipline which corresponds to what you can do, but which requires attention for you to actually do it. And so that means as a matter of commitment. So what I mean to say by this is concentration doesn't take place only at the time when you're sitting in meditation for the purpose of concentrating on being a point of light, a soul, and focusing your attention on the Supreme Soul in a state of soul consciousness. So that is how you may define meditation for yourself. So, okay, you get your time figured out, and you get your intention figured out. And then you say, oh, I can't meditate because, I get distracted, because I can't just focus on a point of light for the recommended time of 45 minutes because it's boring, or it doesn't mean anything, or I get a headache, or, the various things that you can observe which take place. So that means you have to go once again back to the drawing board and think about, okay, what is really meditation? And one of the definitions that I give to meditation is that it is focused attention, deep thought about what is worth thinking about. So that means to say that you need to occupy your mind and strengthen your concentration power, which lies in your intellect. So your intellect has been called a kind of spiritual muscle, which makes a determined thought that I will sit at this time, from this time to this time, and I will meditate. And then your mind says, fair enough, but give me something interesting to think about, because if you don't, I will eat your head. That's what happens. You find that there is a difference of opinion between your mind and your intellect. Now, if you don't practice meditating, you'll never find out about this difference of opinion between your mind and intellect. And this is something really important to meditate on, to figure out. So one of the aspects of spiritual concentration is figuring out what this is all about. So you say, okay, all right, now what is meditation? So go back to my definition, which I think is quite helpful. Deep thought about what is worth thinking about. So you have to answer this question for yourself today or tomorrow morning. What am I going to give time to myself to think about, because I want to understand it better? So this is quite a helpful approach. This Raj Yoga is a study and a practice. And so we want to understand what the study is and how it may be different from any other kind of study. All right, so let us go back to this concept, the concept of spiritual concentration. And when we are wanting to understand spirituality, it involves a lot of concepts which are non-material, which are ideas about a dimension of reality which is not physical. So one of the problems that we have to come to terms with is that our mental faculties are used to dealing with sense perception, physical things that you can perceive through your eyes, ears, etc. Now, the idea of yourself as a point of light is not something that you can represent physically, because the definition of a point of light is something that does not have any dimensions. But in your mind, you can form an image of a point of light or an idea. You don't have to specifically visualize something, but you get the idea. You know what a point of light would look like if you could see one. And if anybody can't figure it out, a good representation of a point of light is a star in the night sky. And although many people live in cities where you can't see any stars, but sooner or later in life, you will have seen what a star looks like. And so this is what the soul is like. And when you look at yourself in the mirror or in a photograph or any drawing or representation of yourself, it shows especially your face and the rest of your body. And the world we live in is very much connected with the use of artificial intelligence and other technologies which deal with face recognition. And so your face is the one thing about you that is different from any other human being, because every face is different. But every point of light, every soul from a visual point of view is the same. And so for you to think about thinking of yourself as a non-material, non-physical being who, if you could see it, would look like a point of light. And so you have this thought in your mind, okay, I am actually a point of non-material light, and I'm going to meditate on that. And you find that you can meditate on that for about 15 seconds. And then your mind says, okay, what else? What's next? So this is because the mind is used to be quite honest, sensory overload. Most people are very engaged in their social media, which is full of lots of little videos with editing cuts that are faster than a second at a time. And so your brain has been somewhat mangled by the vibration and the what you can say is the frequency of editing cuts, which does not correspond with the rhythm of your brain. So this is already something that messes up your capability of concentration, and it also messes up your willpower, and it also messes up your power to separate yourself from sensory input. So if you know that, then you have to decide for yourself to what extent you're going to expose yourself to something which is specifically designed to mess up your ability to concentrate. And so you have to decide for yourself what's more important. Are you more important, or the things that are coming at you, the sensory overload, is that more important? And you have to decide that for yourself, because nobody can do that for you. So if you say to yourself, okay, it's all about priorities. So what are my priorities? You have to ask yourself very deeply this question: what are my priorities? And maybe you need to sit down with a notebook and write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up until whatever number you want, and identify your priorities. What's number 1? What's number 2? What's number 3? And your priorities may change from day to day because a change in circumstances or situation will require you to recalibrate your priorities. And you may find that there are some priorities that are permanent, and you may deviate from those if there is a special situation, and then you will return to your permanent priorities afterwards. This is helpful in meditation and spiritual concentration because you have to ask yourself, and it's not the same for everybody. Ask yourself, what are my priorities in my personal spiritual practice? And this is why reality is that Raj Yoga does not involve any type of techniques whatsoever. If anybody does come up with a technique, it'll be of interest for a couple of times, and after that, it'll be pretty much irrelevant, because meditation is about deep thought, about what is worth thinking about today. And that may still be the case tomorrow, but the next day, something else may be more worth thinking about than what it was yesterday. So each day is different, each day is individual. Now, this is a program for BKs only, which means that you receive an input from the daily Murli every day. And the purpose of the Murli is to give you food for thought. And the mind says to the intellect, give me food for thought, because then only I will think about it. And I need fresh food, tasty food, wholesome, nutritious food in terms of ideas. So you have to be really creative, and you may not be all that creative, or you may be, but you have this source of material, which is the daily Murli. And so when you want to meditate, a very good idea is to take a look at the daily Murli, and everybody has complete access to all the Murlis. They are absolutely available online, all the Sakar Murlis, all the Avyakta Murlis. And so the best recommendation is, okay, today's Murli. What did you see in today's Murli? Well, I saw something that I found very interesting, and I will give this as an example. And the reason I found it interesting is because it was a concept that is the opposite of what most people believe and act on. So the concept that was given in today's Murli, among many, many other concepts, was if you practice to become pure, and you give a lot of attention on becoming pure, as a result of that, divine virtues will arise automatically. Now, I found that interesting, and the reason is because most people think that if you focus on accumulating divine virtues, then you will become pure, whereas the Murli said the absolute opposite. So this is the thing. Each one of us, when we read or listen to a Murli, will find there is some point which happens to strike us on that particular day. And when you experience something like that, it's a signal that says, okay, if it strikes your mind, then it means it is worth thinking about, because your mind lit up saying, aha, this is different. This is not normal. This is interesting. Let me take some time to think about this, process the idea, and take a look at everything that is to do with that idea so that you arrive at deep, clear understanding. And it may mean that you change your thinking about certain ideas that you had fixed in your mind. So, because most people think that if you focus your attention on developing divine virtues, this will make you pure, and yet the Murli says the opposite, it means there's a difference of opinion between the general public, maybe also even the general BK public, and what Incorporeal God is saying. That means it's worth thinking about, because you have to decide for yourself, are you going to go along with the general public, or are you going to go along with the teachings of Incorporeal God? You decide for yourself. Doesn't matter what anybody else is thinking. It matters what you think. And a lot of people think that, well, if everybody thinks one way, then it must be right. Not necessarily. No. And when you get a point like this that comes up, it says, here is an opportunity for you to decide for yourself how you position yourself in regard to these two opposing forces. One is the force of general public opinion, and that is within the BK world, general public opinion, and then a point in the Murli, which is the opposite of that. You need to think about that. So you think, okay, well, first thing you have to think about is, what does it mean to become pure? Pure in use of the word Sato Pradhan. So you have to think about this word. It's a Hindi word. You must have heard it many times. If not, I will define it for you. In the spiritual teachings, it speaks about the different states of things. And when something is pure, it is called sato. When it's impure, it is called tamo. And somewhere in between is called rajo. Now, in Hindu philosophy, there are some who say there's no such thing as different states of matter or being or time or anything. But in the teachings of Raj Yoga, it says there is. So you have to decide for yourself, is there or isn't there? And in order to decide, you have to meditate on it. So you're giving your mind and your intellect work to do. This is important in meditation, because you're sitting quietly, focused on the work that you're going to do. This is mental work. This is intellectual work. And the matter that is under consideration is, what is the meaning of becoming pure? Because when you become pure, it causes you to develop divine virtues. And so if you want to develop divine virtues, then you have to practice and figure out what is the meaning of becoming pure. So then the next step is you have to sit with yourself while sitting already. Sit with yourself and try to feel internally whether you think you are pure or some middling level or impure. And this is entirely subjective. Now, you may be a person who believes in objective reality and who believes that a subjective assessment is unreliable. However, in this situation, the only possible source that you have is your subjective assessment of your current state. Then you say, okay, now this is disturbing to me because I have a belief that something subjective is unreliable. And here I am in a situation where I have to rely on something subjective, which I don't believe in order to arrive at a decision as to what kind of level of purity I think I have. So that's not so easy, is it? And so that requires focused attention. Now, what happens when you have to figure out something that's difficult and that depends on you alone? This is your subjective personal assessment of yourself, which may or may not be accurate. You have to allow yourself to be a good judge of your own self. And so you start to take a look at some of the obstacles. So your first obstacle is your intellect says, oh, this is too hard, I can't do it. Let me do something else. And then you say to yourself, no, 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 wait a minute. We made a decision here that we're going to look at this piece of information and we are going to consider it. We may or may not arrive at a conclusion, but we're giving ourselves some time to consider it. So sit and pay attention. In this way, you have an inner dialogue with yourself. And this is required because your mind and intellect go all over the place and they don't want to concentrate on something that they think is too difficult. And you say, no, you have to, because this is the practice. And it doesn't matter if it's too difficult, do it anyway. So then you arrive at an awareness that there's lots of different voices inside your head. And which one is me? Well, you have to figure out that as well. And when you're sitting down in meditation, you become aware of things that are going on in your head that normally you are not at all aware about. And this is why it's very important to make your meditation practice based on the Murli, because the Murli contains those elements that actually enable you to progress in terms of the capability of your mind and intellect to process ideas. And these ideas are coming from the mind of God. And so they're interesting and important. So you have to resist this feeling inside that says, oh, this is too hard, I can't do this. There must be an easier way to do it. So you decide for yourself, okay, you're going to do this or you're not going to do this. And you have to decide, are you going to give up or are you going to proceed? So if you give up, then you will feel you can't do it. If you don't give up, it's actually good because by getting yourself to not give up, you're actually resisting the natural tendency to give up. Natural tendency to give up is because it's too hard, you don't want to, make yourself do something. This is where the willpower comes along. So if you say to yourself, no, don't give up. And you may even, when you encounter this tendency to give up, you may also assess yourself and say, okay, what I have is a tendency to give up when something seems to me to be too hard. And so I will consider my spiritual practice to include an effort to not give up when I feel like giving up. And here is a very important aspect of physical concentration to understand, and that is that your intention and how you feel very often comes in opposition to each other. And so again and again, you come up with this need to make a decision. Okay, I don't feel like doing this because it seems to be too hard. And then the other voice inside says, okay, I appreciate that. I get it. It's definitely too hard, but let's make an agreement. You talk to these different sides of your mind and intellect. Let's make an agreement that we're going to sit with it at least and consider it, because we don't have to arrive at a conclusion. What we're here to do is consider this thing, which presents itself as difficult, but we're going to consider it anyway. And we're also going to notice the different peripheral things that arise when we consider this little sentence. So these are little sentences with big consequences and big connotations. So let's go back to the sentence. If you practice to become sato pradhan, means extreme level of purity, this will cause divine virtues to arise within you. So let's look at the other parts of the sentence. So the first thing we looked at is if you practice to be sato pradhan, and we arrived at the conclusion that I can't do that, it's too difficult. Okay, fair enough. Look at another part of the sentence. It will cause divine virtues to arise in you. So that's kind of interesting, because one of the things that you want is to cultivate virtues. So check with yourself and ask yourself, okay, is that what I want? Do I wish to acquire or achieve divine virtues? And you say, yeah, definitely, I want that. Okay, if you want that. So the way to get it is to make yourself pure, make yourself sato pradhan. So now what your mind has got is an identified desire, because the mind is all about desire. You desire to get something or to avoid something. So in this case, you want to get something, you want to get some divine virtues. So you might say to yourself, okay, I like to get a divine virtue. Which one would I like today? Okay, that's a nice thing. Okay, today I want to think about the divine virtue of being a loving person. I like to be a loving person, say, for example. You could choose anything, but let's try this one. So if I become pure, then I will become loving. You see, this is again an if-then, see? And this is all about clear, logical thinking. So meditation is about having clear, logical thought, which creates an energy that enables you to arrive at a viable conclusion. And this is very subtle. This is why it's called spiritual concentration, because you're not thinking about anything physical. If I, the soul, practice to become pure, then I will automatically become loving. So this is something new, perhaps, for your mind to think about, if then, if then. Because normally people think, if I make myself act in a loving way, that'll make me pure. But this morally says, no, no, it's not gonna work. That's the wrong way around. And you say, oh, really? It's the wrong way around. Yes, it is the wrong way around. Okay, so if I become pure, how do I know if I'm becoming pure? What is this all about? It's too confusing, it's too subtle, I can't do it. So you see, again, an obstacle comes up, and you have to have an answer for that obstacle to make it go back down again. So you tell that part of your consciousness that says, no, 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 this is too subtle, too hard, too difficult. I don't operate that way. You say, okay, doesn't matter. We're going to consider this. We don't have to do anything more difficult than just consider it. That if you make yourself look like a loving person, that will make you pure. No, that is not going to work. Do you get it? So you talk to yourself and say, this idea that you had, that you can make yourself act in a loving way and that will make you into a pure person, that is incorrect information. That is a wrong idea. And you have to sit with it and decide, is it really wrong? Because up till now, I've always thought it was right. And here comes a morally point which says, no, it's not right. So then you have to decide. Do you agree with public opinion, which everybody thinks like that? That's you also think like that. And then incorporeal God says, no, that's not how it works. First important thing to do is focus on becoming Sato Pradhan, pure. Because when you do that, it will cause you to become a genuinely loving person. And emphasis on genuine. You see, it's very easy to fake looking like you're loving. Anybody can do that. Okay, so here's the difference. Here you're bringing up your power of discernment. Being really loving or looking like that you're being loving, but it's actually fake because you're not really loving. You're just making it look like you're loving. What do you want? You want to be real? You want to be fake? Ask yourself, because it's up to you. Nobody else involved. So it is the self talking to the self about the study. Then you might say, oh, I can't do this. This is too hard. So then you say, okay, let me talk to God about it, because after all, this is God's idea, so let me talk to him about it. And then you say, okay, God, are you listening? I am here to consider this statement that you have made, which is that if I become pure, then I will become naturally, authentically, genuinely loving. So I need to know if it's really true. So then you turn your attention to God and say to yourself, okay, God, let me know if this is true or not. And then you might wait, say, okay, I need a sign. And maybe you'll get a sign, but most probably you won't. Because God will say, okay, you're a student and you have to decide for yourself whether what I'm telling you is true or what the assumptions of the general public are saying, whether that's true. So you decide, it's up to you. Now you may come to a conclusion that you are not really a person who is willing to decide for yourself, but you tend to prefer to go along with what other people are telling you or what they say. And so then you have to come to terms with that, because in general, what the Murli says is you are doing this study for the purpose of becoming a master. You are a person who is free and independent in your thinking, but you may be a little bit influenced by other people, other things. So now assess that, because you cannot move to the next level of this meditation until you first decide for yourself whether you think for yourself or whether you just go along with what everybody else says. So are you a free and independent thinker or not? Check this with yourself. So everybody says such and such, and God says something different. So you decide which is right. And you say, well, I don't know how to decide. And God will give you the response because it's there in the Murlis. You decide for yourself. That means you figure it out, sit with the idea, and decide, what do you think? What is your considered opinion on this matter? And what you find when you reach this point of your meditation is that you're actually being asked to empower yourself. To empower yourself means to give value to your own personal opinion. And your opinion is important. It's important to you. And why is your opinion so important is because whatever you do based on your opinion is called your karma. So when you're meditating, you're thinking this is also karma. So now you have to sit with yourself and decide, do I value my own evaluation? Do I value my own opinion? And then you have to look at yourself and say, okay, if somebody else disagrees and they oppose me about it, how will I feel? You see, and you have to decide whether you mind about it or you don't mind about it. What's more important to you? See, again, you come into your decision of what is your priority. So, what's more important to you? Your own opinion, your own considered opinion about these things, or whether the rest of the people approve of your opinion? That's a very important question to give to yourself. So if you say, well, I really need to be approved of because then I will think that I'm an okay person. But then God will come back to you and say, okay, so, well, you want the approval of the general public about matters between yourself and yourself. This is called giving away your power. So if you want approval of other people, it means you want to give away your power. And if you want to meditate, it means you want to get power. And so if you want to get power by giving away your power, is this going to work? Probably not. So again and again, go back to the drawing board and ask yourself really key, important questions about your integrity. Because if you give away your power to public opinion, which is defined as completely unreliable, what does that say about you? Do you have any self-respect? You see, and it very often comes up in the Murli that your self-respect is of paramount importance. Yet you want approval from other people about whether or not your thinking is correct. That means you're giving away your power. That means you don't have faith in yourself. That means you are willing to be anybody's slave who comes along down the road. What does this say about you? What do you feel? What do you think? So ask yourself these questions and really look for the answer. And this is going to tell you about yourself. And this is the importance of meditation, that it really puts you face to face with yourself about really important issues. Are you your own person or not? You say, oh, well, I have to be obedient. Obedient, what does that mean? God says to you, consider yourself to be a soul, and consider this recommendation that if you practice to become pure, it will cause you to acquire divine virtues. Is that anything to do with anybody else, or is that everything to do with you? Ask yourself this question. And if you're thinking clearly, you will say, well, I mean, it's really up to me. And this is very, very important part of the meditation, to realize that it's yourself and God. And this is the discussion between yourself and God about yourself, and everybody else is none of their business. And if you can make this clear for yourself, this is a very good step towards personal independence and freedom. And if you think about it further, in this study, God is saying to you, I am offering you freedom and freedom in life. Do you want it? And you said yes at some point. And so again and again, when you're meditating, you will be brought face to face with this question. Do you want to be free? Do you want to receive what is being given to you? Or do you want to just pretend to be free? Ask yourself, do you want this? Do you want to pretend? Do you want to look good? Or do you want to be good? And you have to decide, because it's nothing to do with anybody else. And then it may feel difficult for you. Well, when you don't think about these things much, it's all very easy, because you just don't analyze anything, and you can just fake it till you make it, or however you want to do it, but it won't get you very far. And so this way of meditating and seriously thinking and deeply thinking is going to make you more aware, more awake, and more close to your essential self, because you have to decide for yourself who you are. And who you are is very much a reflection of these kinds of choices that you make. So again, go back to the original point of the question, which is, if I practice to be pure, Sato Pradhan, this will cause divine virtues to arise in me. Now, by the time you've gone through all of this stuff in your mind, you're pretty concentrated. And you have faced a few difficult issues. And all of this adds to your state of concentration. And this is just because you're considering something, you're considering it deeply. And you're arriving at a conclusion that, oh my God, this stuff is important. I really do have to make some decisions here because this makes it clear to myself who I am, what my value is, what my importance is. And giving away my power, that doesn't look good for me. I'm not going to do that to myself, you see. So all of this doesn't necessarily enable you to arrive at a clear understanding of what is the meaning of becoming pure. But what it does do is it makes you aware that this statement, though it's a tiny little statement in the Murli of 3 pages and about 300 different points, but is really worthwhile for you to go into the depth of it. And it enables you to be concentrated on yourself. You're really talking to yourself and to God about important matters. And it is causing you to actually get more pure because you're not allowing your mind and intellect to be lazy or to undermine your sense of self and let yourself be less than what you really are. So I'm going to stop there because we basically completed an hour of considering a little sentence from today's Murli and many, but not all by any means, of the deep personal questions that arise from such type of deep thought about what is clearly very worth thinking about. Om Shanti. So turn the attention within and let yourself be neutral regarding all the external things, the people, circumstances, all the drama, and just be with yourself. I am me, and I am deepening my understanding of me, I the soul, with a huge part in the drama. But I'm not my role. I'm just me, the self, the being of light. And I am connected eternally with the Supreme Being, the Supreme Soul, Baba, my friend, teacher, the great intelligent being who knows all things. This is my support, my resource, and everything else is secondary. And that gives me stability, independence, freedom, and I am comfortable with my being and with everybody, however they are. So be it. Om Shanti.